Today marks a very special day for the 7th generation of Pokemon. Not only is it the 1090th day of Generation 7, it is also the final day of Generation 7. Starting tomorrow, on November 15th, 2019, we will have a new Pokemon generation on our hands. The Galar region is here for some people, actually, already. But for me, at least, Generation 7 is still here. And I thought I'd do one final look at this generation. I would have gone downstairs and gotten my Pokemon Let's Go copy, because I'm going to cover Let's Go in this video. But I felt awkward going downstairs and just grabbing the case. So, let's talk Pokemon Sun, Moon, Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon, Let's Go Pikachu, and Let's Go Eevee. We got 6 games this generation. More than most generations, I'd say. Yeah, more than most. Because generally we got, for a while there, 3rd versions. And boy, will that be a topic to talk about. But starting with Pokemon Sun and Moon, I was dismissive of these games for the longest time. Dismissive of Gen 7 in its entirety, really, for the longest time. And that was a mistake. I owned this book here, right here, for several years, but I never even looked really at it because I didn't want spoilers for Gen 7. But I also got rid of my Pokemon Sun copy, and I wasn't willing to play my sister's Pokemon Moon copy. So yeah, Gen 7 just sort of stayed in a limbo for me all through 2016, all through 2017, and most of the way through 2018, actually. So throughout all that time, I didn't really get too much of a connection or experience with Generation 7. Because going into Generation 7, Pokemon Go kinda happened. Like, it definitely, like, exploded. But it left me with this feeling of bitterness by the end of it. Like, it was a very bittersweet year, 2016 was. Because it would mark a time of a cultural resurgence for Pokemon, and then subsequently quite the backlash for Pokemon. Because, oh boy, did going back down to Pokemon is for kids really suck after, like a month or two of just crazy stories about people getting up, going out, catching those Pokemon in Pokemon Go, and golly, I just wish that had lasted longer, but it didn't. We got back to status quo, I guess, and that left me fairly upset, if I'm being honest. And I was already burned from Gen 6. Like, very burned from Gen 6. And I still maintain, to this day, that Gen 6 is the overall worst generation, because yes, we had pretty great Ruby and Sapphire remakes, but that doesn't make up for the just utter disappointment that was X and Y. Still, probably the worst core games we've ever gotten. They were missing tons of content, they were very bare bones, too easy, had very few new Pokemon, and the 3D graphics that they touted weren't actually all that great. And for a while there, I thought Gen 7 was just sort of more of the same, just a disappointing generation. And I openly dismissed the concept of this generation being good. But then I got my Marini plush. I actually heard about Marini thanks to a drawing by Mega Weasley X that I showed off in the Marini review. I bought that plush, really liked it, and it made me think, you know, I don't actually know almost any of the Generation 7 Pokemon, because I hadn't really looked at anything in Generation 7. Somehow I had managed to avoid every spoiler for Generation 7. Somehow. For 3 years. I don't know how I did it. I guess I just shut my brain off. But it's also because I wasn't really involved in Pokemon around that time. So I decided, you know what, let's go. No, not let's go. So I decided, you know what, let's play Pokemon Sun and Moon. Well, specifically Sun. I bought Sun. I played it. I beat it. And after beating it, I missed out. Really, I did. Because Pokemon Sun and Moon are fantastic games that have a really bad start. Like, I recommend you play Sun and Moon, but be warned, you are going to have to sit through a lot of dialogue, a lot of cutscenes, a lot of really, frankly, bad trials. Like, they did not do a good job of putting the fun trials at the start of the game, because, oh boy, those early game trials are monotonous, they are slow, and that is just the way to describe the first, like, 20% of the game. But after that, I swear to you, it's worth it. These games really do pick up, and they're just so quality, so good. They look amazing on the 3DS. The battle system, oh, the battle system is so good. All the new Pokemon are so unique and fresh and interesting. Except for, you know, Crabrawler and its evolution. But other than that, we're in the clear. We got a very good selection of Pokemon in this generation. And overall, I just think that these games were pretty great games that were just not marketed properly. And there's another thing that I wanted to talk about. The fact that these games just had terrible marketing. A lot of the marketing was just focused on the weird oddities. Like, these two legendaries right here, Solgaleo and Lunala, not the best designed when on the outside. They make sense in context of the games, and once you actually know about them, you just think, oh, they're great legendaries. But when you're on the outside looking in, they just look like, oh, Pokemon's running out of ideas. They're creating Power Rangers as Pokemon now. And, yeah, just sort of the vibe they gave off. And the Ultra Beast, my god. What a fantastic concept that should never be introduced to anybody who isn't playing the games. Because they just look so weird, and that's the point. But outside looking in, it looks like Pokemon has lost its mind. That being said, there was one thing that repeatedly got to me during the marketing, and that was the fact that they specifically highlighted the funny-looking Pokemon a lot in the marketing for these games. Alolan Exeggutor is the one I'm specifically talking about here. I don't really care that much for Alolan Exeggutor. I don't really care for it. And I have a feeling I'm not alone on that. It's just a funny-looking Pokemon that they shoved down our throats, and I feel like they did too good of a job at that, because that really put me off of Gen 7 for a while, with all the weird marketing around it. But yeah, Sun and Moon were great games that just had a lot of bad things surrounding them, but at their core, they're some of the best games in the franchise. And then we got Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, which I haven't played, but from what I've seen and heard, their DLC turned into a game, not just one game either, 2 games. Like, they have some legitimate improvements, like Mantine's Surf, the improvements to the Poképelago, all sorts of stuff, that these games, Sun and Moon, are going to kill to have. But why are Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon their own games? Why are they not DLC for the original Sun and Moon? Or at the very least, why are they not just one game? Why is it not Pokemon Stars? That just... it's heartbreaking, honestly. To see a Pokemon game that, when you really get down to brass tacks, really wasn't given enough development time, because it was only released 164 days after the first set of games. It was released 1 day shy of Sun and Moon's 1-year anniversary, which is insane. And that just goes along with everybody else's sentiments that I've already heard about how Gen 7 felt rushed, and yeah, it started out strong, but that midpoint, ugh. Awful. And now we come to Let's Go, interesting final chapter of Gen 7. And again, outside looking in, looks like a sour note to end the generation on. What a cynical cash grab, going back to Gen 1 to lure in all the Pokemon Go players. And that really was the impression Let's Go gave to a lot of people. And for good reason. The Pokemon series, thanks to Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, had gained a bad rap for being just the same thing over and over with very minimal changes, and yet people are still expected to buy the new games. So people weren't happy going into Let's Go, and you can tell that with all the Let's Go reviews and such. Everybody's super hesitant and like complainy and whiny because, ugh, if you ever wanted evidence that Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon were not actually that great in the grand scheme of things when you think about their place in the franchise, just look at the effect it left on people. It made people bitter. But here's the funny thing about Let's Go. It was the first Gen 7 game I played. Well, no, technically I played a little bit of Pokemon Sun over there first, and then I traded it in and had to buy it again. But Let's Go was the first game that I fully, properly played. Now, I didn't beat it before I got into Pokemon Sun. I actually beat Let's Go after playing Pokemon Sun, because I kind of just forgot about playing Let's Go because I was having so much fun with Sun. But Pokemon Let's Go actually got me into the ideas of Gen 7, specifically the, befriending your Pokemon helps you in the story and everything. Which, you know, a lot of people call that super duper childishly making the game easy, and part of me agrees, but the also other part of me goes, this is something I've always wanted them to do. Make your connections with all of your Pokemon, not just your starter, mean something. And they did it. They honestly did it. And that's just my overall opinion on Let's Go. They did it. They somehow made a remake of Gen 1 on the Nintendo Switch not seem super cynical. Like, yeah, the game still does have several problems, like the motion controls kinda suck. The fact of the matter is they remade a GB game, like a Game Boy game, in HD, but still used a top-down camera and made the game on a grid. You know, that's kinda unacceptable, too. And yes, of course, they still have the crappy animations in some points that we are seeing in Gen 8, where, you know, sometimes they just have really nice, fluid animations for the models, and then, like, whenever they want to show a person jumping, they'll have their model stiffly move up and down, which was fine for sprites, but we're now working with 3D models, and they've been doing that for 3 generations now. Oh boy. Oh boy. But, Let's Go, I will tell you, ain't actually that bad. It's actually quite good. I'm not gonna defend the controls, but I still think that they work to a degree. The battle system is very simplified, but it also is kinda nice, you know? Just to have a more simple battle system. Now, I'm not saying I want that as the battle system. Definitely not. But, you know, having that as, like, an option in one game is actually not that bad, and I actually quite enjoy it. And, you know, another thing I also quite enjoy? The roaming Pokemon. Everybody loves the roaming Pokemon. Because it makes the world feel so much more lively, which, especially in Let's Go, is very much needed, because, oh god. Oh god, Let's Go. Like I said, remake of a Game Boy game in HD, and boy does it look barren otherwise. So, having that is just so good. Not to mention, you can have your Pokemon walk behind you, you can ride on your Pokemon. There's tons of fun cameos that are actually respectful cameos and not just, oh hey, here's Colress. such as, you know, Blue being an actual character, Red, which is kind of out of nowhere, but it's still a challenging battle, and of course Green from the manga, who has an actual character. So glad we're getting Pokemon games with actual characters now. And, you know, Let's Go could have been a super cynical end to Gen 7, and yet, it wasn't. It was a pretty sweet end, but still somewhat bitter. I feel like Sun and Moon are two of my favorite Pokemon games. But looking back on Gen 7, there is a reason why I didn't get into this generation sooner. It has so much good about it. It has so many great new Pokemon, so many great new additions to the battle system, to the stories, to the worlds that are in these games. So much great stuff in them. But at their core, these games are more corporate than any other Pokemon game before, like, generation-wise. These games, man, feel like they were very heavily affected by outside interference. Whether it be Pokemon Go's sudden explosion of popularity, whether it be Game Freak just not having enough time, or Game Freak being lazy, or Nintendo not supplying Game Freak with enough resources or whatever. None of that really matters, because this generation just sort of ended up being a half-hearted last hurrah to the 3DS era. But, half-hearted as it was as a whole, I will say, Gen 7 actually did leave me with some really good memories. And I'm gonna miss it. Overall, I'm gonna give the generation a, no, not C+, that's mean. I'd say like a B. This is a B tier generation. And, individually, Sun and Moon, A+, all the way. Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, technically I should give them a better rank than Sun and Moon, but the story of Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon really sucks, and they don't actually add enough new stuff to warrant them being new games, so I'm gonna give them actually a low C, maybe D, for their rank, because they just made all third versions look bad, and all of Pokemon look bad in general. And then Let's Go, I'm gonna give a solid B, B+. Like, they definitely have a lot of problems, but they're still nice and fun. So, guess that's it then. Time to move on to the new generation. I'm gonna miss Gen 7, but I'm also excited to see where Gen 8 leads. With all that being said, join me tomorrow where I will be playing Pokemon Shield for the first time ever on release day. See you there, guys, and have a great night.